First off, I'd like to thank these amazing people who decided to support me directly and make my work here on the platform so much easier. And remember, if you also want to help me out, the missile knows where the join button is at all times. Hello pilots, welcome back. How have your battles been? Mine have been going well. Today I'm here for another day of flying with you guys, this time with the new F-15C Golden Eagle, which is a straight-up upgrade from the F-15C that's already in the tech tree. For anyone used to that F-15C, the most noticeable thing here is, of course, a more advanced radar. While I was editing this video, it actually got a bunch of buffs to its scan area in all modes, which is way bigger now and definitely boosts your situational awareness a lot. So if you want an update on this jet, let me know down below. It also has bowls, which basically makes this jet act like that Finnish F-18, giving you infinite countermeasures for a typical air RB match. The weapons aren't much different from what we already have in the game. You're limited to 120 A's, which are basically identical to the 120 B's, and you also get 120 C5s. And finally, the glorious, or maybe not so glorious depending on your opinion, the iconic 9M. Even though it's technically an upgrade, I gotta be real with you guys. After a few dozen matches with this new Eagle, I just didn't feel like it's actually a super strong jet. You might be asking, hey Karma, what do you mean by that? Well, compared to the Delta Canards, and especially the Su-30SM, it just feels way behind in capability. So we can probably expect even more buffs, electronics, flight model, whatever. Also, drop an F in the chat for General Lee, who's worked hard and is still working hard to make this jet better. Let's hope he gets the same blessings the Rafale has and gets some good support on War Thunder issues. But hey, hold up, it's not all doom and gloom. Even if it's not the best of the best, you're still flying a 14.3 jet, so if you love Eagles like I do, you can definitely have a good time with this bird and get some great results if you put in the effort. That's exactly what I'm gonna show you next, so stick with me. Alright guys, even though this is a 14.3 jet, when it comes to offensive capabilities, its gameplay isn't much different from a 13.7 F-15C. Why is that? Well, all the major upgrades we got on this plane are radar related, which basically just means better situational awareness and countermeasures. Both of those favor a more defensive playstyle. What usually helps a jet be more aggressive is good weapons and raw performance. And you can easily see that in other jets like the Rafale, Eurofighter, or Su-30SM, but not in the F-15C Golden Eagle. It's tough to pull off attacks at Mach 1.5, and if you get caught out of position or have to go into heavy defensive maneuvers, you can pretty much kiss your speed goodbye. It sucks, but it's true. So that really tells you how you need to play this thing. And keep in mind, I'm talking about how things actually are in the game, alright? So basically, most of the time I play like an opportunist or a support jet, taking advantage of plays that are already set up, or ones that come out of a defensive position. Here I started out in a defensive position, where there aren't many enemies around, and I happened to find an isolated target that's out of position. Let's see if RNG smiles on me. Apparently, I must look pretty good because RNG smiled back at me. Now look at the battlefield. Most of the enemies have lost their advantage, and I'm in a great position. My team seems to be in a pretty tough spot, but even if they weren't, I can't just leave these more neutral and defensive angles and routes. Most of the time, avoid playing aggressively unless it's really, really worth it. So I often make extensions like this to keep some distance, which is what keeps me alive. Considering the change in contrail altitude, this guy is really high up and fast. Notice how, even if he hadn't broken my missile lock, it still wouldn't have hit. It's a good late-game move, but I'm not sure it's the right play right now. I might not have killed him, but now he's in a tough spot to get kills, and easy to get killed himself. Ask yourself, what kind of impact did this guy have for his team, who had the advantage, but now seems to be losing most of what they gain? I've only got one missile left, so I need to use it wisely, because after I fire this shot, I'll have to run back and rearm. That means I can't mess up my positioning from here on out. Getting into a duel with just one missile could easily mean certain death. At this point, I figured the Su-30 was the least likely to defend itself, and the Eurofighter hadn't even seen me, thanks to Gaijin's excellent spotting system. Anyway, now it's time to head back. You can't even blame the guy for getting taken out like that. Gaijin intentionally made the spotting system worse and reduced missile smoke visibility. It's tough to play in a 16v16 like this, where there's always someone watching you from a different angle and everything's so chaotic. Here I am taking off, and look at those two over there. I'm probably not even being spotted by them. Guys, don't do this. The anti-air is way too strong to be flying around an airfield like that. The best thing you can do is wait for your target to take off and move away from the anti-air. If you keep circling an objective like that, people are rarely going to leave the airfield's missile umbrella, and you're way more likely to get shot down. There's just no counterplay. Alright, life goes on. I'm gonna see what's left for me with the 3 players remaining, and I'll be right back. Check this out. I've already regained altitude, which puts me in a pretty comfortable spot. There's still a guy hanging around the airfield. He could have rearmed or waited in a stronger position, but instead, he's just sitting there without knowing where I am. You have to understand, a key part of intercepting a takeoff is knowing where your target is. If you lose track of that, there's no reason to stick around. It's dangerous and just not smart. Now he's about to get engaged without having the slightest idea what just happened. I said there would be moments when it's worth being aggressive. This is one of them. On this map, the spawns are pretty fair, and nobody fired a missile at me from 40 kilometers out or more. Plus, they're not flying very high, so it's worth taking the risk. The enemies are pretty spread out, so I'm also going to risk positioning myself on the right side of the map. That's usually where players go when they want to play at a slower pace, which means there'll be more of them over there, so I need to be extra careful. No hit with the first missile, but that's fine since it was a BVR shot. The whole point was just to make the target back off from being aggressive. Here I'm using TWS HDN because the regular TWS radar modes were still pretty broken at the time. Maybe they've been fixed by now, so you don't necessarily need to use this anymore. I had to spend a lot for very little in return, but like I said, it was necessary. Now the priority is to get out of here ASAP. Even though I didn't get a frag with every shot, it was enough to break up their positioning and situational awareness. Some teammates took advantage of that, so overall it was a great play. Once again, my team's in a tough spot and I'm already out of weapons. It's gonna be a hard fight. Let's see what happens. So my team's Su-30 just dragged another enemy Su-30 over here. He could have waited a bit for me to take off and we could have set up a duo strategy, but that's not what happened this time. Even though the airfield is pretty OP on this map right now, it's actually kind of balanced because there are plenty of mountains you can use to plot some routes around here. I don't really like abusing this kind of mechanic. I find it pretty lame, but in this case, it was necessary. I'm not gonna just sit here taking advantage of it, though. Let's take off and see what happens. There's a Su-30 around here in a really strong position. Unlike the other enemies, he's actually waiting for me and my teammate in an ambush. And I'm not at all interested in getting into that fight right now. I'm still slow and loaded with fuel. This missile probably won't kill him. It's just my way of saying, could you please back off? While his RWR is screaming, his mind will instinctively react, and that gives me time to build up a real advantage. I know, it seems really calm right now, but there's still no time to relax. I'm aware there's another Su-30 besides this one, and the guy's probably already tracking me. There's no way around it here. The positional advantage I built up got wiped out right after that defensive maneuver, so my only option now is to use the terrain ahead. Here, I can't really tell if it's the TWS bugging out and not picking up the guy, or if he's just too far away. At this point, it was really hard to trust the radar. Thanks a lot, Papa Snail, for the terrible service. I'll have to use everything the radar can do to at least get some clues about where the last two targets are. So if you're watching, this part might be a bit boring, but it's a valuable experience that could help you out in certain situations. I can clearly see a player on the right side of the scan area, but by keeping the radar steady where it's scanning now, I have a better chance of picking up the second target. I suspect the second guy is still camping over here on the left. At least that's where I last got a ping from his RWR. So I'm gonna check this area out and I'll be right back. Elementary, my dear Watson. Look who we just found over there. Look at the speed this guy's flying at. I bet he's counting every drop of fuel at this point. That's it. After all that, I've got a little less than half my arsenal left, and I clearly saw that other F-15 heading to rearm. I've got no choice but to go rearm again. It's just crazy to get into a fight against 8 missiles when I've only got 2 left. Here we are after rearming again, guys. Look who we found over there. It seems like I'm still on time, but he's a lot faster than me. So I'm gonna fire off a few missiles just to force him into an early defensive maneuver. Since he was way faster, I'm guessing it's a strike eagle. By firing missiles like this, I'm trying to mess with his situational awareness. He wins in performance, but my eagle wins in awareness. Let's see if it works. Look at how aggressively I'm flying, and he hasn't fired a single missile at me. I think he's already lost track of where I am, while I know exactly where he is. That happened way faster than I expected. He disappeared from radar, probably because he's using the terrain, but it's kind of pointless since I've got an ASA. No matter how buggy or broken it is, the advantage here is huge, because his radar is not only buggy too, but it's also a mechanical one. For those who like flying high with this jet, it's definitely possible, but not for very long, and here's why. First, it's really hard to keep building up speed with this Eagle all the time, and every little turn you make bleeds a lot of energy. So, you might be able to pull off a high-speed missile shot every now and then, but the gap between those plays is pretty big, and if you get caught out of position, your chances of getting killed go way up. I quickly realized there was nothing for me in BVR. First, everyone I'm up against is flying way faster than me, and there are already a lot of teammates taking the front line. So, if I want to keep my altitude up, it's better to just take a safer position and then start an attack later, like I mentioned before, either playing opportunistically or trying to support my team. I'm about to start a long process of fighting for my spot and bleeding off everything that's trying to kill me right now. There we go. I managed to catch a wave before the furball, so now I can start pushing hard with some strong aggression. And it's always important to remember to discipline your playstyle. Never be too aggressive. Always stay opportunistic and defensive. Alright, there's one guy wandering around me and another coming in high. I don't have any missiles left, so it's going to be tough to make it back. Here, I'll have to grab onto any little opportunity I see to survive. Speaking of opportunity, look at the situation this broken spotting system created. My ace crew spotted the guy just before I got spotted by him. Now all I can do is make a good approach and do everything I can to pull off a gun kill. I gotta apologize here. I made some changes to my controls, and my muscle memory just isn't letting me line up with the new, better setup I configured. So yeah, some embarrassing stuff like this happens. And RNG let him fire a missile at me, but at the same time, RNG didn't kill me either. One soul for another, warrior. That's how it should be. My eagle's bringing me home alive. That's what I call a happy ending, guys. Alright folks, this is the last match where I've already mastered the jet, so I won't be teaching anything else. It's just for those of you who still want a little more. This one's for anyone who appreciates the art of gameplay, so stick with me until the end, where I'll say my goodbyes. Alright folks, that's all for today. Hope you liked it. Do you agree or disagree with anything I said? Tell me down in the comments. Your feedback is super important to me. The video ends, but the chat stays. Karma out.